Have you ever wondered why people listen to ghost stories even when they're terrified? Some say it's curiosity, some say it's comfort, and others believe these stories carry a strange kind of healing. Some people are terrified of ghosts, yet they still can't resist listening. Others turn on a ghost story to heal their hearts. Some play it at night to fall asleep, or even as background noise to stay focused while working. From older generations to the very young, yes, even kids under their parents' guidance, many people have fallen in love with these haunting stories of One Candle of Midnight. And of course, there are countless other reasons why listeners find themselves drawn here. But for me, all of this comes from one place: your love, your care, and your endless support. That's why tonight, I, Ethan Graves, ready to share with you another chilling tale. Tonight begins One Candle of Midnight. A hospital gurney was being rushed down a long hallway. Samantha lay on that gurney, half conscious, watching the fluorescent ceiling lights slide past one by one. Each light grew dimmer, as if her life was slowly fading away. Even though it was after midnight, Sam still saw figures drifting through the hall. Some leaned in to look at her, as if to check whether she was still alive. But their faces were pale, almost gray, their eyes nothing but dark pits, endless voids like black holes. Her eyelids grew heavier and heavier, as though some unseen force was pressing them shut, dragging her into eternal sleep. Just before she slipped away, she faintly heard the desperate voice of her younger brother. "Sis, don't fall asleep. Please, stay awake. I'm right here. Don't leave me." That was when Samantha was wheeled into the emergency ward, the place where life and death wrestle with each other every hour, every minute. The next morning, she opened her eyes inside what seemed to be her own cozy bedroom. Posters of pop idols lined the wall, stuffed animals piled across the bed, and fairy lights twinkled playfully across the room. It was the dream of any 24-year-old young woman with big ambitions. But the illusion shattered. The room dissolved into the cold, sterile gloom of the hospital. A doctor was standing over her bed, checking her vitals, while a male nurse took notes. Behind him, Samantha thought she saw the shadowy outline of a frail woman, her neck twisted unnaturally, hair hanging down like a shroud. Too weak to resist, Samantha slipped back into unconsciousness. In the darkness, she heard the sound of water bubbling, as if someone was drowning in a deep river. The gurgling filled her ears until she felt she couldn't breathe. Then suddenly, the chaos softened, the gentle sound of water being poured into a glass. She opened her eyes again. This time, her brother Daniel, a nursing intern, was by her side. Seeing her awake, Daniel's emotions tangled between relief and anger. Because Samantha wasn't just any patient, she was his older sister. And Daniel knew why she was here. She had attempted to end her life by jumping into the river. He tended to her quietly, but when their eyes met, he couldn't hold back. "Why, Sam? Why would you do that? Do you even care what this would do to Mom?" Samantha looked away, ashamed. Their father had died in a car accident years earlier, leaving their mother to raise them alone. Sam had always tried to be the responsible one, working hard to support the family, but endless rejection and unemployment had broken her confidence. Depression and hopelessness had slowly pushed her into darkness. Daniel, in contrast, was outgoing, energetic, finishing his medical training with pride. He often used his part-time job money to take his sister out, trying to cheer her up. But instead of comfort, Sam only felt guilt. She should have been the one supporting him, not the other way around. Then one day, she found love. She met David at a job interview. They both failed the interview, but they hit it off immediately. Soon, Samantha's dull days brightened. She dressed better, smiled more, and constantly texted David. For the first time in months, Daniel saw hope in his sister's eyes. But tragedy struck. David gambled their savings in cryptocurrency and lost everything. Worse, he borrowed money from loan sharks. Threats of violence followed: broken hands, stolen organs. Desperate, David begged Sam for help. She refused to let him near their mother, fearing the knife she'd seen hidden in his backpack. Eventually, David tried to sell one of his kidneys, only to learn he was already suffering kidney failure. His despair consumed him. One drunken night, he attacked Samantha, intending to cut her open and steal hers. She escaped with a wounded arm. Broken beyond repair, the couple made a suicide pact. They leapt into the river together, but only one body was recovered lifeless: David's. Samantha was saved by strangers. 2 days later, she was brought to the morgue to identify him. His corpse was waterlogged, skin blistered, his face swollen and greenish like melted wax. Samantha's hands shook uncontrollably. She realized that though she lived, her promise to die together had chained her to him even in death. That night, she began to see him again. Wrapped in the very same black plastic from the morgue, David's corpse stood at her hospital door, dripping water onto the floor. His voice rasped from inside the bag. "Sam, don't leave me. Come with me," she screamed. Nurses rushed in, but of course they saw nothing. Only her brother Daniel, still skeptical, stayed by her side, convinced she was hallucinating. But Samantha knew the truth, and one person in the hospital seemed to know it too: the janitor, Mrs. Helen. Once a victim of a car accident herself, Helen suffered brain trauma and was never quite the same. She wandered the halls silently, broom in hand, but her cloudy eyes saw things others could not. She pulled Samantha aside. "Did you break your promise to the dead?" Sam trembled and admitted she had promised to die with David, but she survived. Helen shook her head. "The dead don't forgive broken promises. He will drag you down unless you bargain." That night, Helen gave Samantha protective charms: red threads, bells at each bedpost, and a paper effigy written with Sam's name and birthday. At midnight, incense smoke filled the room as Helen chanted in her own quarters. David's spirit appeared, clawing his way out of the black plastic, his teeth sharpened, his eyes burning with hatred. He reached for Samantha, but instead of her, he found the paper effigy. Furious, he realized he had been tricked. Helen tightened the red string, binding the spirit to the doll. His screams echoed through the hospital halls, though only Samantha and Helen could hear them. Finally, the paper doll crumpled into ash. Samantha survived the night. She burned the remnants the next morning, but Helen warned her, "He isn't gone. He's hiding, waiting. Spirits like him are clever. They don't let go so easily." She pressed a rosary-like charm into Sam's hand, whispering, "Carry this. If he comes again, you'll need it." From that moment, Samantha, once ready to throw away her life, clung desperately to survival. She realized waking up each morning, breathing, simply being alive, was the most precious thing she had. Yet the story wasn't over. Because later that week, as Daniel walked alone down the hospital hallway during night shift, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned. Nothing. But in the flickering fluorescent light, just over his shoulder, stood David. Music fades out. Samantha thought it was over. The ritual had saved her. The effigy had burned. And for a brief moment, she believed she was free. But freedom from the dead is never so simple. Mrs. Helen knew it. She had seen too many wandering spirits clinging to the living. David was not gone. He was waiting, lurking, searching for another way back to Samantha. For the next few nights, Sam tried to rest. Each morning, she told herself she was safe. But fear lingered. Every shadow in the hallway felt like his figure. Every drop of water echoing in the pipes reminded her of the river. Daniel refused to believe in ghosts. He told her it was trauma, hallucinations, her mind healing from the brink of death. But deep down, Samantha knew better. She had seen his face. She had felt his breath. And now, she feared he would not stop with her. Because spirits are jealous. When they cannot claim the one they want, they turn to those closest. One late night, Daniel was finishing his rounds. The hospital was silent, the fluorescent lights buzzing faintly overhead. He carried his clipboard, walking down the long corridor of the East Wing. Then he heard it. Thump. Something had fallen behind him. He turned quickly. Nothing. The hall was empty. He sighed, shook his head, kept walking. Then again. Thump. This time, the sound of dragging. Wet, sticky, like a soaked tarp sliding across tile. Daniel turned once more, and this time, his heart froze. At the far end of the hall, standing under a flickering light, was David. His body still wrapped in hospital plastic, dripping water onto the floor. His head tilted, his eyes hollow but burning. The same corpse Daniel had helped send to the morgue was now upright, staring directly at him. The spirit took a step forward. The plastic crinkled, water splashed at its feet. Daniel blinked, trying to convince himself it wasn't real. But the smell of river rot filled his nostrils, unmistakable and foul. His breath quickened. His hands trembled. "Sam," the spirit rasped, "you broke your promise. If she won't come, you will." The hallway lights flickered violently. Daniel stumbled backward, but his legs felt heavy, like he was sinking into water that wasn't there. From her room, Samantha woke with a start, clutching the charm Helen had given her. She felt it grow hot in her hand, the red beads pulsing. She knew immediately. David's spirit wasn't after her anymore. He had turned on her brother. She screamed for help, but her voice barely carried through the ward. The air grew heavy, cold. Nurses rushed in, but Samantha pointed toward the hall, tears in her eyes. They saw nothing but Daniel frozen in place, staring into emptiness. But to Samantha, the truth was clear. David's spirit had latched on to Daniel, dragging him into the same darkness where it had come from. Mrs. Helen appeared suddenly, clutching her broom as though it were a weapon. Her eyes widened when she saw Daniel's state. She whispered an old prayer, scattering salt across the threshold. The smell of incense filled the corridor as she chanted faster, her voice rising over the growl of the spirit. The figure of David twisted and howled, reaching for Daniel's throat. But the red string Helen carried snapped tight across the floor like a barrier of fire. The corpse writhed, its form breaking apart into shadow. Samantha cried out, reaching for her brother. Daniel collapsed, gasping for air, sweat pouring down his face. When he looked up again, the hallway was empty. David was gone, but only for now. Mrs. Helen turned to Samantha, her voice grim. This is not finished. Spirits who die in despair, they never go quietly. He will come again, and not just for you. Until he finds peace, or until someone forces him back where he belongs, he will wander. And he will hunt. Samantha clutched her brother's hand, trembling, realizing that her ordeal was far from over. She had thought death would end suffering. Instead, death had only unleashed it. And somewhere in the shadows of that hospital, the drowned ghost of David still waited. There are still many questions left unanswered, shadows that whisper from the corners of the hospital halls. What truly lingers in this place between life and death? Some say the dead rest here. Others say they never left. Join me in the next episode, The Night Shift, and discover what really happens when the lights go out.